So what can you do when your life insurance company goes from a mutual to a stock-held company?
You are listening to Wealth Talks with the McPhees. This podcast is specifically for Ohio National clients, people who have own policies with Ohio National. Many of those you may have purchased through life benefits. And we're looking here at the proposal that the Ohio National announced last year that they were looking to transition from a mutual company to a stock-held company.
And in this particular situation, Ohio National was needing an influx of capital because of some annuity issues that had happened. But, when we look historically, this has happened with many other companies, MetLife, Prudential, Hartford, so the Phoenix Company. Those are companies that have all one time been mutual that are now stock held. So what happens when that takes place is that there has to be a consideration paid to the policyholders who had participating policies with that company. And so Constellation has said they have $500 million that they're going to put up, and that's going to be divvied out among the policyholders that had participating whole life insurance with Ohio National in consideration so that they can make this transition and demutualize.
Yeah, and so that's if the transition goes through. There are still a number of things that have to happen in order for this to go through. But one of the things that people have coming up this week, in fact, by March 10th, I think the votes have to be cast, is the mutual policy owners here are getting an option of whether to vote for this transition or against it.
And we can't really advise you one way or the other to do that. What you do need to know is that no employee, executive, or agent that represents Ohio National is going to get any consideration for what is happening here with Constellation. We're not getting paid for this. There's not going to be a payoff for us. There's not going to be a payoff for the executives. This is just Ohio National needed more capital influx. Constellation is providing that. They're providing one of the highest bid, most likely. We don't know that, but if this vote doesn't go through, then Ohio National's board has determined they're going to be looking for someone else to do it. That bid may be higher, may be lower. We don't know. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the consideration that Constellation is given, we think is fair.
Mm-hmm. So when Ohio National announced this last year, we took a look at all the policies that we have written with Ohio National, and we looked specifically at the guaranteed values because the non-guaranteed values, the dividends, that's kind of like the icing on the cake. Those can change. They may or may not be there in the future, but we know the guaranteed values are going to be there because the insurance company can't change those values whether they stay a mutual company or whether they transition to a stock-held company. They have to honor those guaranteed values. They can change new products going forward, of course, but not the existing ones.
So, John, what can the consideration that Constellation is paying policyholders be used for?
There's a couple different options. So people can choose to receive it in cash, or they can choose to have it go to buy more paid-up insurance, kind of like a dividend does in the policy already. It buys more paid-up insurance, and it increases the cash values by about the same amount that would have been received in cash.
Now, if they take the cash option, I know reading through the material that Ohio National has provided each policyholder, that could be considered a tax liability.
It could be, yeah.
Now, what about if they maybe could they use that to pay a loan down?
Yeah, they could. They could take it in cash and then use it to pay down a loan, pay the tax on it. They could also, if they prefer, to have it be used to buy paid-up insurance in the policy. And then if they wanted to surrender some of that paid-up insurance internally and pay a loan with it, they could do that as well.
That's interesting. So this isn't the end of the world for policyholders that have bought policies. In fact, like John said, there was only less than a handful of policies that were very new, where it made any sense at all to try to do a 1035 transfer to a different company. Now, this is interesting. We represent other companies as well, and they've been pounding us now since this announcement first was entered. You got to 1035 all those Ohio National policies over to this company or that company. And, we're more in this to represent our clients, not represent the insurance companies. We have to work with the insurance companies, and we try to find companies that are compatible with our values and your values. But we have to look at the bottom line to see, is this going to be in your benefit? Now, we don't get any consideration for doing that. We're not getting paid to do this. No executive, no board member on Ohio National's current staff is going to get any payment for recommending one thing or the other. And we're not recommending anything. We're just trying to teach and educate so that people know what their options are. And I can say right now, all the team here at Life Benefits, we own many whole life insurance policies through Ohio National. We're not transferring any of them, and we're not getting rid of any of them right now, because those guarantees are so good that every time we pay a premium, we have a lot more cash value in our policy that's guaranteed to be there for us than what we paid in premium.
And that's the key. That's one of the things that we were looking at for all of our clients' policies with Ohio National. When we did that review last year, we were focusing on those guaranteed values. We wanted to see if we transferred to another company that's staying mutual, is there really any benefit in doing that? And the answer was no.
And that's why we've always focused on the guaranteed values of a policy, because the non-guaranteed with dividends is unknown. We don't know that from year to year until that dividend is declared. And so to count on that would be speculation. And if you're going to compare a whole life insurance policy to a speculative investment, then you have to look at dividends. But when you're not, and you're just looking at that slow guaranteed growth, then it's inappropriate, in our opinion, to be trying to base your expectations on those non-guaranteed values. Mm-hmm. So we're not trying to come through the back door here anyway or make excuses. It's just that this is happening. Ohio National needed a capital influx. They've got a great offer, and so they want to move forward. The board has unanimously approved this, and now they're asking the policy members, which we are if we own a participating whole life insurance policy, to cast their vote by March 10th, whether this goes forward or whether it doesn't. Now, what if all the members say no and it doesn't go through, John?
And it doesn't go through, well, then the board is probably going to look for another company to do a transition or some sort of acquisition with, because they want this influx of capital.
And they've already said that's exactly what they're going to do. Now, that offer next may be less than this, and our consideration then as policyholders would be less. Mm-hmm. So, that's the knowledge that you need to know to be able to make a wise decision about what you want to do moving forward. And whether you're a client of Life Benefits or not, and you want to just talk about this, you're welcome to call us. We can talk about it just to educate and teach you. We're not giving any advice on this. But the truth of the matter is that this has happened with many other companies. And I've reviewed hundreds of those policies that have happened with other companies and seen them. And the growth is still there in the guaranteed columns. Mm-hmm. So that's
sometimes even in non-guaranteed, because they sometimes continue to pay dividends to the existing policy owners. Ohio National says they plan to continue to do that as well. They're going to be probably lower dividends than were originally projected, but dividends were never guaranteed in the first place.
Dividends have been lower across the board in all insurance companies because of the unique environment we are in, where bonds are low. At the same time, interest rates are low, and that's really a contradictive principle in economics. They usually oppose each other. So it's, and then again, we had the IRS ruling with the tax law changes where products have changed in 2021 and 2022 anyway. So it's an interesting time that we live in economically. These are some adjustments that have to be made, and I think that, like I said, we're going to keep all of our policies. We're not transferring any of them, and except for those few, less than a handful of policy holders, we have made no recommendations for 1035s.
That's right. So that brings up the packet of information that you have likely received from Ohio National if you are a policy owner. If you own just a term policy with Ohio National, you're not going to get that packet. It's only if you're a mutual participating whole life insurance policy owner that you're going to get this packet. The packet has a big prospectus in it that goes through the reasoning that Ohio National is converting to some of this, to considering this transition to a stock-held company. Some other information, basically all the information that we've been sharing with you here, outside of our own review of policy owners' information that have been through life benefits. All the information that we're sharing here is, basically we learned that by reading through that prospectus and some of the other announcements that the insurance company has made. Now, there are a few pages with that that you can use to respond. You can either vote on the issue for or against the demutualization, and that vote has to be received by the Home Office this week. I think it's March 10th is the deadline for those to be received. So rather than waiting on the mail, there's actually a link on that form. You can go online and vote either yes or no. The other option that you have is whether to receive the estimated consideration amount in cash or have that go to paid up additions on your policy. And if you don't make a selection on that, then it will automatically go to paid up additions, which is likely going to be a good option for a lot of people.
It's something that has come up is people that have term policies with Ohio National. We've gotten several requests. Do I keep that term or do I convert it, or what do I do with it now? And the answer to that question is what we always say when someone has a convertible term policy. If you're ready to buy whole life insurance, it's always best to see what the cost of buying a policy is without conversion. Mm-hmm. And the reason that is that if you convert, you lose part of the term. And yeah, it comes over to whole life, but if you can add a whole life on top of that, that's better than having to just come out
drop some of the
coverage. It also depends on where your health has changed, what your rating has changed. So those are questions that we can answer personally, independently. We're here available at 702-660-7000 to address those questions. But we have never just advocated if you got term, convert it always, because we have to look at the details to see which is going to be the most cost-effective and in your best interest. So, whether you have a term life insurance policy with Ohio National, that needs to be evaluated independently, and we can do that on an individual basis.
That's right. Yeah, for people who have term insurance, if they just need the term insurance coverage, they can't buy insurance at the rates the same rates that they could when they were younger. But if they primarily bought that policy to convert in the future, and they would rather convert to a different product, then if they're still in good health, that might be a consideration where they would want to switch that term insurance.
And we have to remember that Ohio National had some of the very lowest term costs in the industry across the board. So, those are all things that we have to take in consideration. And like I said, it has to be on an individual basis.
It does.
Can't give any general broad sweep of the brush on that one.
Yeah. So hopefully this information is helpful to you as Ohio National policy owners. You can call our office for questions, additional clarification at 702-660-7000. And we'll be back here next week on Wealth Talks. Have a wonderful week.